All right, all right, all right. Welcome, everyone. You are going to hear Nathan in the background doing a lot of stuff. You will not, you might not see him for a long while yet, but um, let me be, let me welcome you to the first episode of NFL 101. Let me transition real quick. There we go. Look at that nice graphic. Look at that awesome graphic
You're welcome.
that Nathan made for the channel. Awesomeness. Thank you. Let's go.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to transition again. Watch this. This is my first time doing this. I'm excited. Boom. There we go. Anyway, so, like I said, welcome to the first episode of NFL 101. This is a basic guide for anybody who's not familiar with football and not familiar with the NFL to the NFL football. Again, I'm going to explain this really quick. As I explained when we announced the football, um, when I announced the football when we announced these anyway. I'm getting off topic. Well, I'm stumbling over my words more like, but when we announced these projects or these side stuff, we are not taking football or any other nerd stuff off the main channel. It is just going to be, this is just a supplementary type of thing to the channel, so that we can move forward without having to explain certain rules and regulations of the NFL year. In today's episode of the NFL 101, you there we go. Hold on. Give me a minute. I noticed something real quick. Anyway, we are going to discuss the NFL league year and all that entails. Now, let me pull up my notes. Anyway, so when I say NFL league year, term number one, when I say NFL league year, that is just another term, business wise, for a fiscal year or an operating year. So whenever you hear the term NFL league year in regards to the NFL, you are just hearing their term for what they are saying, for the calendar year in which they function, fiscally and otherwise. Now, the NFL league year is split up into four major sections: the off season, the preseason, the regular season, and the postseason, with a few, well, not really with any breaks in between those, but with each portion of the year, gain has its own special qualities. Pardon me while I take a drink of water. Yeah, the first the first portion of the league year we're going to be talking about is the off season, the NFL off season, which is the portion of the year we're currently in. So this portion contains, the draft, which just happened last weekend, yeah. OTAs, which is just basically a mixture. Is basically team activities, or it stands for organized team activities. There is a mixture of both mandatory and optional organized team activities throughout the off season. Um, One of which it happens to be a training camp, which happens just before preseason and is required for all teams, all players, all coaches. Um, and then another part of the off season is something we like to call free agency. Now, I'm not going to explain what free agency is in this episode. That might be the next episode or the episode after. Well, not in detail, but suffice it to say, for right now, free agency is where teams can sign certain veteran players before the draft, before and after the draft. Um, the next part of the NFL season is the NFL season. Is the NFL preseason. Blah, blah, blah. Keep stumbling over my words. So the NFL preseason, this is when, so a lot of teams, a lot of people, a lot of fans consider training camp to be the official start of preseason. That's up to the personal. That's up to the person. I consider like the last week of training camp to be the official start of preseason before like the first preseason game. So in the NFL preseason, there are 3 games that do not count towards a team's official record, but they give us as fans and the team's coaching staff in general a chance to look at certain rookies to determine their worth in the league. They also give them a chance to uh, test out other acquisitions like the free agents I mentioned before, as they see if they are a good fit on their team or not. And part of the NFL, part of what happens during the preseason is 2 things. So at the beginning of preseason, you're allotted a 90-man roster. So you are allotted 90 players that you can have at the beginning of the NFL preseason. By the time the regular season starts, that goes down to 53 men. So in order to do that, we have these 3 preseason games that that these teams are required to do, saying, "Hey, use these 3 games, test out your free agent acquisitions, test out your rookies, test out your undrafted people, see what you want, and then get that number down to 53, and the rest will go on something called the practice squad, or they will be just free agents blowing out in the wind." So that's the practice squad is something else I will explain later. We are going to discover so many things we have to explain in these videos, right, Nathan?
Correct.
Yep. Anyway, so now we move on to the regular season. The regular season is what composes the most action for the NFL. Not necessarily. It's not necessarily the biggest amount of time, because it goes from end of August, beginning of September to beginning of February usually, or actually it usually goes to the middle of January. It's the regular season. I'm including the playoffs in that, but this is where the bulk of the action goes for in the NFL season, in the NFL the year. The team here we have in the NFL regular season, we have at this point in time, it was different in the past, and I'm sure it'll be different in the future. But at this point, at the point of me recording this video, we have a 17-game schedule for each team, with 1 bye week for each team. So the regular season is 18 weeks in total, with 1 week being a collective bye for the teams. I say a collective bye, but it's not like all we just take a week and let every team rest. It's throughout the season, certain NFL teams will get a bye week, so we need the extra 18th week to make up the 17th game. Also, during what happens during this time is playoff seeding, which I'll explain a bit more later. It's playoff seeding for where you'll rank in the playoffs and where you'll start in the playoffs, and also the trade deadline. So, to explain trades briefly, and very briefly, any 2 NFL teams can agree to trade a certain trade for a player. So let's take the Chiefs and the Packers, for example. Let's say back in 2012, the Chiefs wanted to trade for Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers wanted like 2 first-round picks for him. So what would happen is the Chiefs would say, "Hey, Packers, we want Aaron Rodgers. We will give you X number of picks, X number of first-round picks, X number of second-round picks, X number of whatever else picks, and maybe X number of players, and sometimes even a certain amount of money for to acquire Aaron Rodgers from you." And the Packers can either say yes or no to that. The trade deadline is the last day they can move. That teams can trade for a player. So if your team wants a player, there is a certain amount of time. I think they switched it to week 9 now this year. So they added an extra week onto the trade deadline this year, which is going to be strange for longtime fans like myself. All right, don't worry, we're almost done. Um, so the last part of the NFL league year before it starts all over again is the NFL postseason. So, in case you didn't know, every major sport usually has, or every major team sport, I should say, has a playoff system, which means in order for a team to be declared the champion of the league or world champion, they have to get through this gauntlet essentially of other teams. In the NFL, the postseason consists of 4 rounds that usually takes about 4 or 5 weeks. So, and one of the things that goes into that, as I mentioned before, is seeding. So during the regular season, the win-loss record of a team will determine their seeding in the playoffs. So, why is that important? First of all, there are 14 teams in the playoffs, so about a little below half the league is in the playoffs. So it goes from 32 down to 14, and the lower you are on each side of the bracket, the worse it is for you to get there. So the first round of the playoffs is the wild card round. This is where ranked number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of each bracket. There are 2 brackets, one for each conference, one for the NFC, one for the AFC. There are 2 brackets, and then they meet in the Super Bowl. So the wild card, as I said before, is where picks teams number 2 through 7 of each side of the bracket play together, play each other. There's roughly about, let's see, there's roughly about 6 or 7 games. Yeah, there's 7 games in on Super Wild Card Weekend, as it's called now. After that is the divisional round. Now, team number 1, this is where seeding comes in. Team number 1, the team that was ranked first in each conference, gets a bye from the wild card. So they get a week off. They don't have to play for 1 week, and they get some extra prep time on whoever they're playing next. So the team number 1 on each side plays the lowest ranked team that survived. So if your team is ranked number 7, you will play the first seed in your conference, in order to go to the next game. There are 4 games. No, wait. Yeah. Yeah, there are 4 games in the divisional round representing. No, wait. There are 8 games. I'm sorry. Yeah, there are 8 games representing each of the divisions, the East, the West, the North, and the South, in each conference. So there are. No, wait. That wouldn't make sense. Hold on. I'm miscounting. So there's a as the NFL playoffs continue, the amount of games lessen. So it goes from 7 or 8 games to 4 or 5 games. It's 4 games, I'm pretty sure. To Yeah, it's 4 games in the divisional. I'm sorry, my math was not mathing that right there. So we go from 8 down to 4 or 7 down to 4, which means the teams are almost cut in half because there's 8 teams. Yeah, 4 games. Anyway, so after that, after the division round, there's only 2 games called the championship game. Um, the championship games are the last games before the Super Bowl that determine conference champions who will go to the Super Bowl. This is a sort of a relic from the beginnings of the league, or well, from the beginnings of the league as it is now, because in the 1960s there was a merger between the AFL, the American Football League, and the National Football League. They came together. They are now the AFC and the NFC respectively. They just kept the NFL as the overall name of the league. So what happens is the AFC has a conference championship. The NFC has a conference championship, and whoever wins those games is crowned conference champion, and then they go to the Super Bowl. Now, I said earlier that the NFL playoffs contain 5 weeks. That is because there is a bye week or a week in between the conference championship and the Super Bowl that happens. This week, this empty Sunday contains the NFL Pro Bowl, which is an honor accorded to the best players of the league during the year, and which is fan voted if I remember right. Talking makes your throat dry. Anyway, so with all that being said, there's one more thing I'd like to talk about before we talk about the Super Bowl. It's called the NFL Honors. This is where trophies like the MVP, so the most valuable player of the league, gets handed out. Coach of the Year, all this stuff. Those trophies get handed out during NFL Honors, the Thursday before the Super Bowl. the After the Pro Bowl is played, it goes through what we like to call Media Week or Media Day, where the NFL media can come in and ask the players questions. It's usually a big ceremony and all that junk, kind of like the Olympics, but not as big because the Olympics is an actual worldwide event that has like a 3-hour opening ceremony in and of itself. Now we get to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is the last game played in the NFL season. The NFL so this is the last football game until spring leagues like the UFL start, and it's the last game before the last NFL game before the next NFL season. So the Super Bowl is to crown the champion of the entire league. We call it the world champion. The last 2 years the Chiefs have won it, and hopefully those repeat after this ladies draft. I'm kind of excited. We're going to talk about that later. Anyway, so The Super Bowl is played between the two conference champions, and whoever wins the Lombardi Trophy, which is just awesome. And they get their own custom Super Bowl rings that come out several months after the game is played, and then they get to drop banners in their stadium. They get to do a whole bunch of other ceremonies, and I think at least the last 2 seasons, the NFL champion has played the first game of the year against whatever team they happen to choose. Anyway, with that all being said, it is now we are now heading towards right after Super Bowl ends, we are heading towards the NFL league year uh, rebooting, restarting itself, and any transactions that teams made between the Super Bowl and the new league year starting become official after the new league year starts. And I think that is where I'm going to end it off. I'm going to do a quick transition because I love doing these things. Actually, I'm going to tease something real quick here that give you guys a little, you know, tease of something that might be coming in the very near future, depending on when Nathan or I want to start, filming that stuff for that. And with that being said, was the first episode of NFL 101. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe and all the Patreon and all the other junk, like, subscribe, and all that other junk.